Have you ever felt like you were losing everything? Your dignity, your purpose, your worth? Have you ever found yourself at rock bottom, wondering if there's any way out? I was there. I know the feeling, the gut-wrenching sense that you're at the end of your rope, with nothing left but the ashes of what once was. I was broken, but today, I'm here to tell you there's a way back. And it starts with you, right where you are, no matter how shattered you feel. Let me take you back. My name is Jack, and I want to share a story about how pain became my power, how betrayal turned into my greatest lesson, and how I learned the most important truth about life, love, and myself. It all began on a normal Tuesday, a day like any other. But I should have known the universe has a way of testing us when we least expect it. I had been in a relationship for years. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. I thought I knew her. We laughed together, fought together, and built a life together. At least, that's what I thought. But that day, that ordinary Tuesday, everything changed. I got a text that shattered everything. She was leaving. Just like that. No explanation, no warning. The woman I had planned my future with had made a decision that would upend everything. My heart sank. My world collapsed. I tried to call her, but the calls went unanswered. Texts went unread. I was left alone, staring at my phone, unable to understand what had just happened. The woman I trusted most in this world was gone. I remember sitting there, stunned, with my heart racing and my mind spinning. I couldn't think. I couldn't breathe. It felt like my chest was being crushed under the weight of everything I'd lost. But I couldn't stay there forever, could I? You see, the worst part wasn't the breakup. The worst part was the realization that the person I thought I knew, the person I had trusted with my deepest secrets and vulnerabilities, had been lying to me the whole time. She wasn't just leaving, she was leaving for someone else. A part of me didn't want to believe it. How could I? I had spent so many nights lying in her arms, thinking we were building something real. And yet, there it was, the truth ugly and raw. I felt so small. I felt betrayed in ways I never thought possible. I'd always heard that betrayal is the deepest form of pain, but I never understood it until it happened to me. You can't prepare for it. You can't shield your heart. And yet, there I was, broken, betrayed, lost. For weeks, I was a shell of myself. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't function. Every waking moment was consumed by thoughts of her, thoughts of what I did wrong, thoughts of how I could have been better. I replayed our last conversation, wondering where the cracks had started to appear. I tried to figure out how everything went wrong, as if I could somehow go back and fix it. But nothing worked. The pain didn't go away. It only deepened. In the midst of all this, I started searching for answers in places I never thought I would. I went to the gym to work out the anger, but it didn't help. I started reading, trying to find some meaning in my suffering. I stumbled upon something that would change my life forever: Stoicism. One day, while sitting alone in my room, I remembered a quote from Marcus Aurelius: "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." It hit me like a ton of bricks. I had spent so much time focusing on what had happened, on the betrayal, on the pain, that I had forgotten one fundamental truth. I had control over how I responded. I had control over how I chose to move forward. And at that moment, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let this break me. I wasn't going to let her actions define my future. I was going to find my strength again. It wasn't easy. The pain didn't vanish overnight, and there were days when it felt like I couldn't keep going. But every time the pain started to creep back in, I reminded myself of Marcus Aurelius' words. I took control of my thoughts. I stopped blaming myself for things that were out of my control. I started focusing on what I could control: my actions, my mindset, my future. I started making small changes every day, working out more, eating better, reading more, and meditating. I learned to sit with my pain, to acknowledge it without letting it control me. I found power in my pain. As the days passed, I began to notice a shift. The anger began to fade, replaced by a sense of calm. The sadness was still there, but it no longer held me captive. I realized that I was stronger than I had given myself credit for. I had been tested and I had survived. I began applying the principles of Stoicism in every area of my life. I stopped worrying about things I couldn't change. I started focusing on my personal growth. I began to set boundaries and prioritize my own well-being. Slowly, I rebuilt my life from the ground up. And you know what? I started to feel better, stronger, more in control. I wasn't the same person I was before. I had learned how to turn my pain into power. Months went by. I had become a different person, and the woman who had left me, she was still out there, but I was no longer obsessed with what could have been. I had built something new, something better. And I had learned the most important lesson of all, that happiness, peace, and strength are not things we can wait for, they are things we create. I was finally free. It wasn't just about surviving anymore, it became about thriving. I remember waking up one morning, looking in the mirror and not recognizing the person staring back at me, but not in a bad way. I didn't see the broken man who had been crushed under the weight of betrayal. I saw someone who had rebuilt himself step by step, day by day. I wasn't the same person who had begged for answers, who had clung to the past. No, I was someone who understood that the past doesn't define you, it's what you do with the present that matters. I started setting new goals and making new plans. I focused on my work, my health, and my relationships. I wasn't perfect, but I was different, stronger, wiser. And the thing is, that strength wasn't just physical, it was mental and emotional. It was a sense of inner peace that I had never known before. I was learning to detach from things that I couldn't control. I wasn't living in the past anymore. I wasn't trying to change what had already happened. Instead, I was focused on what I could do today. And that mindset changed everything. It wasn't long before I ran into her again. I had heard through the grapevine that she was back in town, and my heart didn't race with anxiety the way it used to. It didn't tremble with fear or insecurity. I knew that I was no longer the man I had been when she left. I had changed, and in that change, I had found a new sense of clarity. We bumped into each other at a coffee shop, and for a moment, I could feel the weight of the past hanging in the air between us. But I wasn't that person anymore. I didn't need closure. I didn't need to scream or cry or beg for answers. I wasn't looking for validation from her. "Hey," she said, her voice soft and tentative. "How have you been?" For a split second, I felt the urge to lash out, to tell her how much she had hurt me. But then I remembered what I'd learned from the Stoics. I remembered Marcus Aurelius' reminder, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. I took a deep breath. "I'm doing better now," I said, and I meant it. She looked at me for a long moment, and for the first time, I could see the regret in her eyes, but it didn't matter anymore. I had forgiven her, not for her sake, but for mine. I had released myself from the chains of resentment. "You seem different," she said, her voice quiet. "I am," I replied, "and I think that's a good thing." As the months passed, my life continued to evolve. I poured myself into my passions, my work, and my personal development. I sought out new experiences and new challenges, and I pushed myself in ways I never had before. I started a new chapter 1 that didn't revolve around anyone else's choices but my own. And in that journey, I learned something that I hadn't fully understood before. I was in charge of my life. Not anyone else, not the past, not the people who had left me or betrayed me. I was the one who got to write my story. In fact, I realized that the betrayal, the heartbreak, and the pain had been necessary steps in my transformation. I had learned to build strength in my mind, to cultivate emotional resilience, and develop a sense of self that wasn't dependent on anyone else's approval or actions. The pain had been my teacher, and in the end, I was grateful for the lessons it had imparted. Looking back, I can honestly say that I'm thankful for everything that happened. Not because I'm glad I was hurt, but because that hurt led me to a deeper understanding of myself. The Stoics taught us that the only thing we have control over is our response to events, not the events themselves. That was a revelation for me. So I stopped looking for the why. I stopped trying to make sense of someone else's actions. Instead, I focused on the only thing that truly mattered, my own growth. The pain that once felt unbearable had turned into fuel. I didn't let it break me, I let it shape me, and that made all the difference. Here's what I learned, and I want you to learn it too. Life will knock you down, people will hurt you, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. The Stoics taught us that we cannot control what happens to us, but we can always control how we respond. I could have let the betrayal destroy me, let it define my life, but I chose a different path. I chose to rise. So if you're going through something right now, if you're facing heartbreak, betrayal, or any kind of pain, remember this. You have the power to turn it into something beautiful. You have the power to turn pain into power. And in the end, when you choose to rise, you'll find that justice was served, not because of what someone else did, but because of what you did for yourself. You might still be hurting, trying to make sense of the pain and betrayal life has thrown your way. But here's the truth. You have the power to rise. You have the power to turn that pain into something beautiful, something that will shape your future in ways you can't even imagine right now. Don't let anyone, not even yourself, convince you that you're not strong enough. You are. You always have been. And the best part, the pain, the struggle, the betrayal, all of it can become your greatest teacher. It can propel you toward your highest self. Remember what Marcus Aurelius said, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. So today, you can choose to let what stands in your way be the thing that leads you to greatness. If this story resonated with you, if you found strength in it, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Let's keep growing together. This is the Modern Stoic, where ancient wisdom meets modern life. Stay strong, stay resilient, and always keep moving forward.